Aloha Maui Nui. Hello, this is Josh Porter.
And Jason Burkhart in the studio finally after a world trip.
Welcome back. Welcome back, Jay.
I'm tired.
We're here on episode 108. We're going to be covering Intersolar Europe. Now, this is may not be on your radar, but this is actually one of the biggest solar trade shows, kind of convening events in the world. Certainly the biggest in Europe, at about 50,000 attendees, 1,300 exhibitors, hundreds of thousands of square feet of space, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, gigantic. Just dwarfed any trade show we've been to previously.
Yeah, really cool.
And there's certainly a lot of announcements coming out of that show as well. I mean, the companies treated it as a major event.
Yeah, they sure did. So there was a lot of kind of firsts coming out of that. We're going to cover a lot of that stuff, talk about some of the new technologies, storage, PV, virtual power planning, all kinds of great, super geeky stuff that's going on over in Europe right now. There's definitely a bit of a solar renaissance happening, and we're going to dig into that today. So let's jump into our housekeeping.
Right away.
Hey, folks, this is the Solar Coaster. We are a renewable energy themed talk show right here in lovely Maui County. We can be found Fridays at 1:05 p.m. on Ko'oi, 1110 a.m. Also some FM stations, 96.7 FM Central Maui, 96.5 FM West Side, 98.7 FM Upcountry.
Got a great website, www.solar-coaster.com. It's getting better all the time because we keep adding more content. We're in the process of uploading a whole lot of interesting photos and video from our previous world travels, including a trip to ITER, the fusion reactor site. And of course this Intersolar show that we're talking about. You can listen live there. Check out our live stream, which is online on YouTube right now. So go to solar-coaster.com, click on the YouTube stream, and you can jump in the studio, see us. Also go in there and check out the podcasts. Podcasts are all our old shows. So if you have any particular interest in a solar technology, you're looking to buy a battery, chances are we've covered it by now. And you can definitely get in and get a full hour's worth of content about whatever you're looking for. We're also available on podcast networks, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, all carry the Solar Coaster. Just pop in, look for our little yellow SC logo, and take us everywhere you go.
Hey Siri, play Solar Coaster podcast.
Yeah, you did it. Okay.
Sponsors, Sundrum Solar, Pantech Design, and LG Chem. These are the companies, innovative companies that are doing amazing things in the space all across the country and the world. This is a call-in show, folks. 808-242-7800 is call-in line. If you'd like to give us a call during the show. Let's jump over to the Pantech Design Minute. Pantech Design Minute number 5. Smart configurable backup power during grid outage. It's all in the circuit breakers. Systems with controllable circuit breakers, a Sonnen Equalinx battery, and an Adapt EA energy automation package can benefit from what's called smart configurable backup functionality.
This allows the system not only to focus on managing excess energy production over what you're consuming, but further tailor energy consumption based on needs and priority defined by you, the homeowner.
So in the event of a power outage, the system will provide backup power to specific circuits based on a predefined set of rules in the Adapt EA package.
When a power outage occurs, the Sonnen Equalinx begins providing backup power to the main panel. You are notified by Adapt that it is providing backup power to your home, and you're presented with options on what you would like to power. If no option is selected, the system can be configured to default to a predefined mode of operation.
The Adapt EA package then sends the selected profile to the controllable breakers, which then actuate the selected circuits to on or off position based on a user selection or the predefined mode of operation.
This unprecedented control and functionality allows you to have more power over longer run times for only the devices you need during an outage scenario, delivering safety, security, and functionality when your family needs it most.
This has been the Pantech Design Minute. There you go, Pantech Design. We're kind of continuing to learn about the capabilities of smart house equipment integrated with solar plus battery. And Pantech is really leading the charge there. Pantech Design is really leading the charge because up until SPI 2018 just really wasn't a possibility.
Yeah, these two industries never talked to each other, and although home automation was very mature, having it tied into the actual energy system of the home just enables so many more options.
It does. So we'll check more about that soon. I think we're going to have a live show at one of the first installs in Texas at Troy Morgan's house.
Sure sounds like, yeah.
We're excited about that, and we'll get a chance to experience it firsthand. You want to jump over to Solar Novus and talk about a little bit about Intersolar and news and events, Jay?
Absolutely. Right away. Where are we? Solar Novus. Success of Intersolar Europe indicates a solar market boom. This is a nice article from Solar Novus about the Intersolar trade show, the one we went to, but it's just highlighting how big this event really was. 1,354 exhibitors. That's 1,350 booths.
Right.
Right. Individual booths. There's no way you can see it all.
Right.
Not
Right.
not a chance. And of course we didn't. 50,000 visitors, which is more than twice the size of SPI last year.
SPI was 22,000.
22,000, yeah. So just huge, and then 162 countries represented. So, and that was what struck me. You'll hear that in the segment going forward, is that there were just so many people speaking so many languages.
That's fun.
It was if you enjoy that type of thing, it's actually a lot of fun.
No, that was fun. It was fun. It was fun to think
trying to find between my languages, their languages, like where can we find any common communication method?
Well, I think we're used to the trade shows we've been to. We were in Intersolar San Francisco, we were at SPI in Vegas and in Anaheim, and we got a sense for what's going on in a national level, SIA and SEPA in DC, and I think that's where kind of our mind has felt most comfortable in understanding of,
Sure, because the content comes in English, we get to navigate that relatively easily. But you cannot forget that Europe is a large continent. There's a lot of good old money there. There's a lot of companies there, and they do a tremendous amount of business that never sees the U.S. We never see it. Right. But there's a whole half of the world going on over there.
I feel like there are people from everywhere.
And they have their own projections here, which is also really interesting, that they're planning on, for 2020, having an 18% growth rate in solar and PV.
Across Europe.
Across Europe specifically. 24.1 gigawatt of capacity installed in 2020 is what they're looking forward to. And we'll see if they hit those targets. We'll certainly keep track of that. But just a tremendous, just booming market. It really was very bullish on the floor.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different things happening over there. In terms of changes in the subsidies. They're talking about a subsidy-free market in renewables across the continent. They're talking about a lot. Then they also had the Intersolar itself. They had these awards for these new technologies that have been coming out. So we spoke to a couple of those companies that had been E-Award. I think it's called the E-Award. Is that what it is?
Yep.
The recipients or finalists, like the metal polymer guys, we're going to hear from in a little bit. So really just a great experience, and I think we're going to be able to share some innovations that are relevant to our market here as well. So what's the next one you want to cover, Jay?
Just real quick, a couple other things that I saw out there and that other people have recognized is that there's a lot of talk about this virtual power plant kind of model.
VPP.
The VPP. There's a new Spanish company. What was the name? It was Ampere. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. I mean, it's Ampere. But the Spanish company, they have this unique little spherical battery thing. It looks like a piece of modern art, really.
Yeah, it's a
or a robot that's coming to.
It's nearly a meter. It's 79 millimeters or
70,
something.
Yeah, 79 centimeters across. Looks like a white Death Star almost.
It's pretty wild looking.
Look this thing up if you can. The
that.
Spanish Ampere sphere. But it looks really awesome, and they're setting up this whole VPP concept. And Sonnen is a company we're very familiar with. They've been a sponsor of the solar coaster. They have a well rolled out VPP model where they actually can do all sorts of things like grid stability. They can migrate energy across the nation without ever changing.
And we're going to dig into that.
We're going to dig into all this
sure.
stuff. But now there's a lot of other people coming up and trying this thing. It just makes sense to have this distributed power kind of model. When everybody has a home battery already.
For sure. I mean, and that spherical battery, they had different shapes, right?
They do have different shapes. They have a nice wood panel one.
Square,
in case you care.
Like a rectangle. And I was like, can I get a triangle or a pyramid?
Yeah, you wanted the pyramid. I think
it's
that's the
almost
most
like a work of art. It's almost like a work of art. I could see it being an apartment.
Yep.
Or a small place, and you're like, hey, I want to get a little bit of backup power. Maybe I'm going to integrate this with a small array. And you go, I'm going to put this as a conversation piece. I thought that was really interesting, man, honestly. I was like, you asked me this morning, you're like, do you want that in your house? And I was like, kind of. Yeah, I kind of do.
Absolutely. All right, the final thing I really want to touch base on here, though, is the photovoltaic. This is a topic you love.
Yeah.
I'm not quite as thrilled with it. There was a lot of conversation. There was a big at this Intersolar event, which unfortunately we didn't attend this particular talk, but it was a big conversation between Bayware and Ocean Sun and a couple other players who are developing new ways of floating these photovoltaic panels. And they had there was a big conversation in between the two of them, and a number of them, trying to get these things to actually pay off.
Right. I guess they're trying different technical approaches, right?
Different technical approaches, different coverage rates. No one had a clear answer on something that I was concerned about, which is environmental impact. Like if you're actually covering the surface of the water, what does that do
there's an ecosystem
to
there.
the ecosystem? Yeah, there is
if
there's there's always an ecosystem there.
Well,
You can't
a lot
say
of
that.
Yeah, a reservoir or like a holding tank. I mean, that's not an ecosystem I want. But so here's the point, right? There are some environments where putting solar on top of water has not only the opportunity to it's the ancillary benefits. You're going to forego the use of land for a solar farm, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you're going to mitigate evaporation. You're going to be able to control that water holding environment in a little bit better fashion, potentially. And then you also have now the opportunity to create energy out of it. And I can see it. Some of these technologies, like the one on this, you can't see it of course, in radio, but we're looking at what looks like a big trampoline. And
it really does, doesn't it?
And it looks like they've stuck on some thin film or something on top of it. I mean, it's probably not what it is, but it looks that way. So it's a completely different type of system than the little floats.
It looks like one of those rubber raft things you'd get in like Disney. You know, when you go to the big river raft thing, and it's just a sphere, round.
And to satisfy your concern, I don't think they're going to be chucking this out on top of the Great Barrier Reef, unless that would help.
It's less about chucking them out on the Great Barrier Reef, but it's more about storm resistance. I don't see these things being capable of dealing with the ever-increasing amount of storm activity we have around the world.
Fair enough.
So I don't like the idea of investing a tremendous amount of power into this type of infrastructure and then have it absolutely just wiped out and washed out to sea.
I don't know, man. Your typical solar farm, like we see with the Tesla. We're going to talk about the Tesla one a little bit later.
Yeah, let's
get a big hurricane in there, knocks it out, and it's the same deal.
Well, we will see. Okay, another one. Forbes article: Swedish clean tech company actually wants to mass produce printable organic cells. So we've been talking about this stuff forever and ever, perovskites, etc. But this is a gentleman, Matthias Josephson from Epishine, which is a Swedish company, is basically putting together a large printing factory. He says his vision is to have manufacturing machines the size and scales of newspaper presses. So think about old newspaper presses, where each machine is printing solar cells on rolls equivalent to one nuclear reactor per month. That's like the best quote.
Nuclear reactor.
Just print a nuclear reactor per month. But you got to understand that a nuclear reactor is
about energy and power, energy capabilities and power
energy capability. It's not actually going to generate that all the time, but having the ability to manufacture that much solar that quickly, that's impressive.
Right, because
really
these lines that are being produced now for traditional solar, when I say traditional, I mean like framed silicon-based PV modules.
Yep.
They have a rating, each of those lines, on an annual production capability. And a nuclear reactor per month is a gigawatt, probably.
Yeah.
So that means we're talking about 12 gigawatt lines running simultaneously per machine, really, not per factor.
Yeah, and we're talking about what, rolling out 100 gigawatt per year.
Yeah,
worldwide, or a little more than that.
So
120 hopefully.
So you set up 20 machines in a factory, and then
all of a sudden you're
right
satisfying the entire world's demand for solar, and that's not too bad.
Oh man,
if you can do it.
This is Geek Central
let's see.
guys.
Yeah, let's see if that actually materializes. I'd love to see it. I mean, if you can get solar on everything, imagine your car wrapped in solar, your phone wrapped in solar. Your house wrapped in solar.
So what I see here is that little machine where you print and put labels on stuff. Now you just have a little solar panel printer, and you just put it on all your stuff.
What's it connected to is a question.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Ahead.
Very good. But go ahead. Which one are we looking at? Oh, Tesla. Okay. Yeah. Why don't you start? Because I don't have it up yet.
Oh, Tesla busted solar panels are in
Vieques?
Yeah, Vieques, Puerto Rico. So I don't think it was actually solar panels. It was batteries that was the problem. Tesla had come in after Maria in Puerto Rico, and offered to install a lot of batteries, a lot of solar at discount and or free. I mean, corporate benevolence.
This is kind of that P.T. Barnum marketing
pass.
that
It really was,
accident,
yeah.
right?
And this is kind of unfortunate that there's a lot of places that are now saying, you know what, it never worked, it still doesn't work, and Tesla's not coming back to fix it. So there's a whole lot of batteries and/or panel solar installations that are sitting there, and they're doing absolutely nothing, and they're now staring down the barrel of another hurricane season already.
So what I get out of this story is that, and this was originally published on the Huffington Post, by the way, but this was the article we're looking at citylab.com.
Yep.
Basically, Vieques is a separate island from the main island of Puerto Rico, right? And there was a DC cable or a cable connecting the grid from Maine to...
Correct.
And that was severed by part of this project that was accepted, I suppose, by Vieques representatives. And they were going to put in what I would guess is a solar farm and probably a whole bunch of Tesla power packs.
Yeah.
But they had some trouble with the existing electrical infrastructure. Things kind of went spark. And it wasn't
They let the magic smoke out. As everybody knows, electronics run on magic smoke. When you let the smoke out, it doesn't work anymore. No, the batteries popped when they... So I'm sure it's not the batteries themselves. I'm sure it's the electrical control systems. It's probably, I would say, a relatively simple fix where those things are modular. You pull out the board, you replace the board. The battery cells are okay, but they simply can't get any attention to have somebody come and swap out the board and, of course, figure out what's wrong with the infrastructure. But it's a serious situation for them because they've now disconnected from the larger grid.
I see. So you got some water supply stuff here, some medical environments, some things like this that they were supposed to be powering, but it looks like they're running off of
schools, which are supposed to be their sites of safety during storm, right?
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, the Tesla's kind of doing a lot of things right now. This is obviously an important one to get a sense of what's going on. I would get an update on the timing on this because it's not really clear to me if this is, the fix is underway. It feels like it should be, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. In local news, finally, Public Utilities Commission has approved the MECO rate hike. So this means an additional 3.7% increase for your electric bill going forward.
And this was April 20th, just so you know. It was
April
about
20th,
a month ago.
Yeah, about a month ago. We'd been talking about this before because we had the interim rate hike that was approved, and now it's gone kind of permanent.
So $5 a month. So if you're 500 kilowatt hours rental, 500 that's pretty low actually. I'd say 500 kilowatt hours. That's like $150, $70 bill. So yeah, another $5 a month if you're here in Maui. Maybe they get a little bit more if you're on Molokai or Lanai.
Right.
And
but they say it's going to raise a little more than $12 million annually, and it's going to pay for operational improvements. Stability is actually on there, reliability, improved customer service, and to integrate more renewable energy.
It's ironic, right? There are these costs associated.
Utilities in the UK, so it's very interesting for them as well, because they can stabilize their grids with a very flexible and very easy way. We are also in Italy, we are also in Australia with putting together our storage system, and there we are also trading on the national energy trading market active today with our Sonnen batteries. So it's everywhere. It's where we have a certain amount of storage system. It makes sense from a certain time on to connect them. It depends, of course, of the service, but anyway, it starts at a very low level already. Some 100 batteries can already have an impact on the grid, of course, and at least they can have a benefit to the customer, because if you, for example, if you have times of very high consumption, also the grid load is very high, and then you can, if you start putting it to the battery storage, you will leave the grid, and the battery owner can earn or can save money. Maybe we could show you our latest technology we have, our app or our customer portal, where people can have access to the Sonnen battery and see what it is doing. So you see there, the yellow lines are the production of the PV system, the blue one is the consumption of the household, and you also see energy is it's a statistics exactly, and you see also. You just saw the grid frequency regulation our customers are doing together. So you have the grid frequency in real time passing over your monitor always, and you see that you are contributing to it. You also see what is happening in your household by like there. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes. So right now we are fully independent with this, and then you also with our energy tariff for this grid frequency stabilization, we have an energy tariff that is called Sonnen flat, and then you also will see very transparently how much of it you have already been using this year, and that you probably will stay below your free electricity amount, and so you have at zero euro electricity costs during the year. That's what you get from making the grid stable. You don't have electricity costs anymore.
That's a service that's worth quite a bit to the utilities.
Yes, it is. It's worth because in Germany at least we have the separation between utilities and grid operators. It's a bit different than in many other countries, but anyway, it's good for both because if you have a stable grid and you don't have if you don't have to activate other things for making grid stabilization like turbines or gas power plants or whatever, and you use something that is already there, that is already in the people's houses, no one has to pay for, that is a very smart way, I think, to make grid stabilization, and of course the customers will benefit from it as well. And also maybe you don't need to, you don't have to, maybe you can save the one or other power line you would need otherwise to make the grid. Thank you.
So Jay, I thought that Sonnen, meeting Sonnen, of course, we had just come back from a trip at Sonnen's facilities, and they were explaining again, but they had a huge presence right in the entryway of the hall, and they're talking about they've been in business for a while. They're kind of a major leader out there.
They're a major leader. I mean, they were just purchased by Dutch Shell New Energy. Mm-hmm. They actually are kind of like the granddaddy of the VPP concept. Everybody would seem to see is that more people are jumping in on this distributed energy resource kind of economy. The next one we actually met up with Senec.
Yeah.
Devin Wilson, we're at Intersolar Europe, right?
Yeah. So we're here at the booth of BYD, and it's all BYD's products, all manufactured in China. We at EFT, we work on behalf of BYD. We support them in all the markets globally they enter. So we've been working with them in Germany for about 5 years now, and we're also entering the U.S. Just recently started entering the U.S. in 2019, the beginning of 2019.
What is the relationship between EFT and BYD? What is your?
We just support them. We support them locally. So BYD is based in Shenzhen, China, and they recognize that it would be most successful to have a team on the ground in each market they're entering. So, for example, in Germany, they wanted someone on the ground to support with sales and all that, as well as after sales support. They know that if you have a problem with your battery, you have a problem with your product, you don't want to have to call your time zone issues and whatnot. You don't have to call to Shenzhen and say, hey, I'm having an issue with my product. You want to call someone locally, someone that can come by your house if there's an issue. So that's where EFT supports them.
So how does BYD fit into the battery conversation? What are tenants?
So the first thing to remember is that BYD is a huge manufacturer of battery cells. So BYD is actually the world leader when it comes to electric vehicle manufacturing. A lot of us in the West, especially in America, we don't see any of that because most of the passenger vehicles are sold in Asia, right? What we're starting to see in the U.S. are the electric buses. There's actually now
manufacturers to kind of a more achievable something that might be able to compete with cobalt. So do you see BYD playing a role in that pursuit?
Definitely. We are already very competitive. I can't directly talk about pricing because we have many markets as well, but we are very competitive with our NMC partners. More competitive in some places. So
magnesium cobalt, is that what that is?
Yep.
So let me ask you this: when you start to when you compare that chemistry versus NMC, you're seeing better cycle lives, right? As part of the characteristic of LFP. Where are you testing that out? And how are your warranties comparing? And what are we seeing?
So when it comes to warranty, we align commercially with our biggest competitors. So you're not going to see it really in the commercial warranty. So for example, in the U.S., it's kind of standard 10 years, 60% usable capacity. What we see though, we've recently had, there's been a couple third-party tests that have occurred. One was the University of Berlin. You can see it here on our booth. We were the most efficient battery they tested as far as round-trip efficiency. But then there's also an institute in Australia called the Lithium-Ion Battery Test Center. And what they do is they get batteries and inverters, and they have a big lab, and they test them in real-world conditions. So cycling them at different temperatures. They have this whole regime of different temperatures. They're doing and it's not just a nice, perfect, low power. It's trying to, because what they're focused on is the customer. They want to say, this is what you're going to experience, right? So what they did, they've been doing that testing now. What they do is every 6 months they release a report. So they're on report 5. They're due to have report 6 very soon. And the nice thing about that is every time they release a report, they show you kind of the life cycle performance of all the batteries they're testing. And what they've shown is the BYD battery it's tracking to have the best life cycle of all the batteries.
You're able to extrapolate out over 15, 20 years.
Yeah, and you can see that. And so they've already been doing it for a while, a couple of years. So you can see where it's going, and then you can see that projection. And that's similar. We do internal testing that shows the same thing. We obviously like to lean on third-party tests, to non-biased source.
To get that kind of cycle life and have that kind of visibility of multi-decade lifespan for chemistry for storage, what I understand is there's a refinement process in the chemistry. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I can get a technical person from BYD here to dig into that. What I can point out, though, so a lot of people have this question. We've been selling these products in Germany for about 5 years, right? But the warranties are 10 years, the life cycle, it'll go on beyond that. So a lot of people wonder, how is this going to perform in years 5 through 10, et cetera? So there's a couple of things. We do expedited life cycle testing in our lab. So to speed things up, we actually, for a residential application, we've done testing of cells up to like 50 years out. You see just a nice smooth degradation curve. Also, because BYD's been around for a while, they've been producing electric vehicles with LFP cells. So all of the buses, taxis, those things, they use the LFP cells, so same exact cells. They've been on the road. So for example, in Shenzhen, most of the taxi cabs are BYD taxi cabs. They use the LFP cells. They've been on the road since 2009.
So got that kind of time frame.
10 years. You have these cabs that have 1 million kilometers on their odometer, and they're operating on the same battery. Obviously, all lithium will degrade over time, but that just shows you that, and that's a tough test house. When you talk about Shenzhen's hot, it's humid, and you have a battery on the underside of the car, and I promise you, the cab operators are not lab technicians, so they're not thinking, I got to treat this battery with perfect respect. So that we really lean on that as well. The same cells being used in that application.
A really strong value proposition here. You've got presumably great costing, which we haven't talked about, but we'll be able to, probably with some distribution. And then who handles your distribution in the U.S.?
We work with a number of distributors right now. For example, Bewa, you can get the product through Bewa. We're bringing others online as well. We brought a lot of our relationships from Germany to the U.S., so those were the first ones that we started with, Bewa, Frank, those types. But we're adding other members as well.
You see the energy storage more. Let's talk residential, because commercial is a little difficult, I think, for people to kind of, fully encapsulate the idea of it. But let's talk about residential. Where do you see the residential storage market to go? Right now in Hawaii, to give you a sense, if you haven't looked at permit polls, which is probably not your neck of the woods, we're at 80% of permit polls are incorporating storage right now for PV. We're just coming out of the doldrums, and we're seeing a ramp right now in the Hawaiian marketplace. We've got a 20+% adoption rate of on-grid of solar, right? So we see the opportunity to really kind of hockey stick in the next maybe year, right? So with that, there's a whole bunch of choices, an array of on-grid energy storage choices, and there's a huge asymmetry between seller and buyer. How does BYD play a role? What do you see happening in the storage market? I think that if you've got an LFP product that competes with NMC, then you've got a lot to say, especially with that kind of track background.
And we're speaking of Hawaii specifically, we're very excited about Hawaii because our cell chemistry and our product plays so nicely with that climate, right? I've talked to distributors there, and they talk about, we're worried about having an NMC product in a warehouse because of, as a battery sits, it'll slowly discharge. Well, our product will discharge slower even at higher temperatures. So it just generally plays nicer both when you're warehousing, handling all that, but then also when it gets in the home, right? High power, you can pump a lot of power in and out of these. You can do 1C. So when we talk about backing up the whole home, this is one of the best solutions on the market for that, right?
1C, just for our listeners' case, can you explain what that means?
Yeah. So 1C is the ratio of capacity to power. So for example, if you had a 10 kilowatt hour battery, one of our 10 kilowatt hour batteries, high voltage in the US, you can do 10 kilowatts of power in and out of it. That's actually exceeds anything an inverter can do, a current compatible inverter can do. So we just like to point out that your battery is never going to limit you. What we see with NMC is its opposite. We see half of those kind of levels of power. So you might get an inverter. You might install an inverter that's capable of 6 kilowatts, but your battery is only capable of 5 kilowatts.